Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on this story that I'm about to tell you. Years ago, when I was just about 13 or 14 years of age, I went with an uncle who had a beverage and a beer distributorship, and he took me to some of the places they made deliveries to, and among them was a Speakeasy Saloon. And while he was talking with the proprietor and trying to sell some of his products, I was eating peanuts from the bar, and those were the days they didn't have rules about not bringing kids into the bars. And there was a little cardboard laying there, and it had a lot of printing on it, so I picked it up, and I'm starting to read, and it didn't make much sense to me then. It just had a lot of different names of beer. Well, a short time later, I read it to somebody, and some grown-up, and they laughed, and pretty soon other people laughed, and I thought, hey, this is worth keeping. So I remembered from that day on, I don't tell it very often, but when I do, why, those same people are still laughing. So this happens to be a story of all different names of beer. Many of them are no longer with us because companies come and go, as people do sometimes. And but I think you'll remember the majority of them. And it starts out with Miss Edelweiss of Burlington, Iowa, was visiting her cousin in Champaign, Illinois. She was itching for a little high life, so she phoned a young Michelob by the name of Patrick Henry and made a date to meet him at the old Heidelberg Inn. Now, this young monarch had a superb, an enormous fox head, which at a contest at the Tavern Pale had won him the blue ribbon. So as they drove out to the Black Forest, he proceeded to lag her old style under the Anheuser bush. He noticed she didn't have on any bloomers, so he took out his grissadick and began to prime her. He pushed it up her schlitz and began to prog her. She let out a few blots of delight and said it didn't chafe her, but she grunted at every stroke of his mighty Falstaff. Feeling like Atlas carrying a heavy load, she came to the point where she couldn't hold her ambrosia any longer, exclaiming, "Oh, honey, I'm going to Pabst." He blew his whole stock of Meisterbrau into her country club, and she went home that night feeling extra pale, but wiser.